In the time before memory, when the world was young and the mountains still grew, three giants walked the earth. They were the last of their kind, towering beings whose footsteps carved valleys and whose voices rumbled like distant thunder across the land. Theron was the eldest, a giant whose shoulders bore the weight of 10,000 years. His skin had turned grey as stone, weathered by countless seasons, and moss grew in the creases of his massive hands. He moved slowly now, each step deliberate, each breath a consideration. Theron had seen empires of smaller beings rise and crumble like sandcastles before the tide. He had watched forests grow from single seeds into sprawling kingdoms of green, only to burn and grow again. Time had taught him patience, but also a deep and terrible loneliness. Across the eastern ranges lived Mira, youngest of the three, her hair black as a moonless night and eyes bright with the curiosity that age had not yet dimmed. Where Theron moved with caution, Mira danced with abandon, leaping between mountain peaks and sending avalanches cascading into the valleys below. She collected things from the world of smaller folk, entire ships that she plucked from the sea, stone towers that she arranged like toys, forests that she transplanted on whims. Mira refused to accept what Theron had long known, that their time was ending, that the world was changing into something that had no place for giants. Between them, in the mountains that touched the sky, dwelt Corvin. He was neither as old as Theron nor as young as Mira, but something in between, caught in the terrible space of understanding what was being lost while still possessing the strength to rage against it. Corvin's anger burned hot. He resented the way the smaller beings multiplied across the land, the way their cities spread like infection, the way their countless voices rose in prayers to gods that were not giants. When villages appeared in his valleys, Corvin swept them aside with floods. When they rebuilt, he buried them in stone. Corvin would not go gently into the extinction that called to them all. For centuries, the three had kept their distance, each walking their own path through the slow ending of their world. But then something changed. In the heart of winter, when the world lay silent under blankets of snow, Theron felt it first, a trembling in the bones of the earth itself, a wrongness that made his ancient heart quicken with something like fear. The mountains were singing a song of ending. Theron began the long journey to the others. His massive feet carved canyons through the snow as he walked for days and nights without rest. When he finally reached Mira's territory, he found her sitting cross-legged in a frozen lake, staring at her reflection in the ice. She looked up at his approach, and for the first time in Theron's memory, he saw fear in her young eyes. She felt it too.
Child.
Mira knew what Theron had come to tell her even before his rumbling voice rolled across the valley. The earth itself was dying, not in the way that smaller things died, quick and final, but in the way that giants died, slowly, inexorably, over ages. The magic that had sustained them, the ancient force that made their existence possible, was fading from the world like colour draining from a tapestry. Soon the land would no longer be able to bear their weight. Soon even the mountains would crumble beneath their feet. Together, Theron and Mira turned toward Corvin's realm. They found him atop the highest peak, surrounded by the wreckage of his latest rage. Below, smoke still rose from the ruins of a settlement he had destroyed. Boulders lay scattered across the mountainside like scattered dice. Corvin stood amid the devastation, his massive chest heaving, his fists still clenched. Theron climbed toward him, each movement measured and slow. Mira followed, more nimble but no less cautious. When they reached the summit, Corvin turned to face them, defiance burning in his eyes. He knew why they had come. He knew what they would ask, and he wanted no part of their acceptance, their peaceful surrender to the inevitable. But Theron did not come to argue. Instead, He simply stood beside Corvin and looked out across the world they had once commanded. From this height they could see everything: the endless forests, the winding rivers, the seas that stretched to the horizon, and scattered throughout it all, the countless lights of the smaller beings who now inherited the earth. The world was beautiful. It had always been beautiful, and it would remain beautiful long after they were gone. Mira joined them on the precipice, and for a long moment the three last giants stood together in silence, watching the sun sink toward the distant edge of the world. The anger slowly drained from Corvin's posture. His fists unclenched, his shoulders dropped. In the presence of his kin, faced with the vastness of what they were losing together, his rage transformed into something deeper: grief. Theron understood this grief. He had carried it for longer than he could remember. That hollow ache of being the last, of watching everything familiar fade away. But standing there with Mira and Corvin, feeling the solidarity of shared loss, the grief somehow became bearable. They were not alone. Even in ending, they had each other. As darkness claimed the sky and stars emerged like distant fires, the three giants made their decision. They would not fight the ending any longer. They would not rage or hide or pretend. Instead, they would choose their own final moment together. They would walk to the peak of the world, the highest mountain that touched the realm of stars, and there they would lay down for the last time. Their bodies would become part of the earth itself, new mountains for a new age, monuments to the time when giants walked. The journey took them across the width of the world. They walked through storms and sunshine, through valleys they had known for millennia, and across plains they had shaped with their own hands. Everywhere they passed, the smaller beings watched in awe and terror, not understanding that they were witnessing not a threat, but a farewell. When they finally reached the summit of the world, exhausted and ready, they found it exactly as legends described: a place where earth met sky, where the air was thin and bright, where the silence was absolute. There, at the roof of creation, the three giants lay down in a triangle, their heads together, their bodies radiating outward like the points of a star. Theron closed his eyes first, his breathing slowing until it matched the rhythm of the earth itself. Mira followed, her curiosity finally satisfied by the greatest mystery of all. And last, Corvin surrendered his anger to peace, accepting what could not be changed, finding in that acceptance a kind of victory. As their bodies stilled and the magic that sustained them flowed back into the earth from which it came, the giants began their final transformation. Their skin hardened to stone, their hair became rivers of ice, their bones turned to bedrock, and in this way the last giants did not truly die. They became eternal, watching over the world they loved through new eyes of snow and stone, present always in the peaks that pierce the sky, in the strength of mountains that will stand long after everything else has crumbled to dust. The age of giants had ended. But their story, carved into the very bones of the world, would never be forgotten.